Hello, I'm Valentin Mandace from Historic Houses of Romania, Belle Epoque, and welcome to my podcast. Tonight I would like to speak about the architectural colors of the Belle Epoque Bucharest, especially the end of 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, what usually is called fin de siècle in this part of Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, taking the French terminology, which dominated its culture. France's culture and fashions dominated this part of the Europe in that time, more than 1 century ago. We are dealing here with an area which just comes into modernity after many centuries of Ottoman domination, and relinking itself to Europe, including in architectural fashions. That's why we have the Little Paris style in Bucharest and urban areas of what we call Old Kingdom Romania, before Romania had Transylvania in, is how the country is usually called in Romanian Vechiul Regat. So the Little Paris style is a kind of provincial interpretation of Western architectural fashions of the Belle Epoque period, especially from France, which Romania wanted so much to emulate, but in a very provincial manner. The same goes with the architectural colors, not having a chemical industry in the country, able to provide the latest kind of architectural colors. Most of the people relied on the old ways of painting their houses or putting color on their houses, which was by using traditional organic pigments. And sometimes they had access to imported paints. But that wasn't always the case. It was many people prefer to do it in the old fashion. We don't really know about the colors of that period because we don't have many engravings, some impressionist paintings, and it's needed to huge research work in order to find out more about the architectural colors of ordinary houses. I'm not speaking here of big institutions like school, palaces, town halls, and so on and so forth, but houses in the Little Paris style, something like this. This is a wagon type house. Now it's in Cala Victoriei area of Bucharest. And this is a house for ordinary people earning what was at that time the average or less than average wage of Bucharest. Okay, changing the image, but I'll come back immediately to it. All right. This, as I said, is not much. We don't know much about the colors in that period, architectural colors, but there are a few means to find out about it through travel journals, and people who came to Romania stayed over here. And one of the most interesting is the journal of Queen Marie of Romania, a princess. When she arrived in Romania in 1880s, she was struck by the gay colors, very bright colors of the ordinary houses, and this probably gives you an idea about it. The interesting thing with this house is that it was, as most of the private houses in Bucharest, were confiscated by the communists in early 1950s. And repainted by them in low maintenance colors, and when they were given back to their rightful owners in the 1990s and 2000s, for this particular house the owners had the interest to find out which were the old architectural colors, and they did a bit of detective work, scrapping the paints, the old layers of paints, and finding what it was painted at its beginnings in the fin de siècle period, let's put it that way, 1890s. And they came out with this scheme, which in my opinion is quite close to what it was at that time. My opinion is that the house used to be much more colored than what we found here. Probably in the window surrounds they had some other decorative scheme, the same part of the walls. Usually the houses were full of colors in that period. But nevertheless, it gives us an idea how Little Paris style house used to look, the color scheme of that time. And these people used, as I said, mostly natural pigment colors, traditional way, as it was used for hundreds of years. And usually those colors, the scheme of the hues of those periods, we can find them in church painting, especially Brâncovan church painting, the Wallachian style, as we have here the corner of a church in Bucharest, Biserica Maicilor, the nuns' church, for example, or the classical case is Stavropolios, and you can see natural colors, pigments used into this church, and you can see that is full of color and detail. The same goes with the Little Paris style houses for a long period, up until the Great War or even after. And what they wanted to emulate in these houses, in the Little Paris style houses, we have here a garden of it. They wanted to emulate the surrounding nature. The house should be like a paradise. So you have the garden and the house trees, details, garlands, columns, cherubs, typical of the Little Paris style, which emulates quite a lot from Neo-Rococo, Neo-Baroque, the historicist styles of that time. They want to transfer the paradise of the nature into the decoration of the house and the color scheme. And how could they achieve that thing? One of the means was to use the paints, as we see here. This is a frieze, and some other people used the ceramics. This flower on the frieze of a Little Paris style house in a Fouillechor de Foc, the fire watchtower area, is made from ceramics, and is still more or less like in the same bright colors of more than 100 years ago. Also, other kind of ceramic tiles they're used, having all of these flower motifs on other houses, on friezes and other important places on the facade. And also they used colored glass, Victorian era colored glass, as I have here in the old conservatory. I made the photograph. The conservatory, by the way, has been thrown to the litter bin, to the scrap iron unceremoniously, and doesn't exist anymore. I managed to make a few photographs. So we had colored glass like what we have here, a bit of orange, indigo. This one is wet moss, green moss, wet green moss, and even rabbit. And this were amber too. They used to be with this kind of colors preferred in the Belle Epoque period. So altogether, they are quite a nice color scheme. Let's put it that way, which made these houses looking very particularly. Not much Paris, I have to say, into it. I have Parisians or French people coming at my tour saying that I don't see much Paris in those houses. It's not Paris, but it's what the people wanted to be. They wanted to emulate Paris, the city of light, the bigger sister of Romania, France. It was a bit of political statement. And without an architectural tradition, it's what they thought Little Paris would be, or Paris would be. And we have this completely particular architecture of Bucharest, which deserves the name Little Paris, with this type of color scheme. Nowadays, some people try to reconstruct the color scheme or to put colors on their Little Paris style houses, but with quite disastrous results in my opinion. For example, we have here a Little Paris style house from the town of Buzău, but it is the same in Bucharest. Many people are doing this kind of things. They just buy from DIY shops this kind of chemical colors, industrially produced colors, and they just splash their houses and this kind of bright colors. It's the same kind of mentality in a way, because the communism was a kind of going back, not advancing in sophistication, but with these mass industrially produced colors. And that is the difference from the initial ones, what these owners managed to somehow reconstruct. So I hope you find interesting this presentation, and we are seeing each other. I'll see you sorry, as soon as possible. Thank you and all the best. Bye bye.